I was already halfway to my car when I saw it. Just a regular shopping cart parked crookedly near the edge of the lot, wheels slightly turned like someone left it in a rush. Nothing unusual until I saw movement inside. A puppy small German shepherd, probably 3, maybe 4 months old, curled up in the corner of the cart like he didn't want to be seen. His fur was matted and dusty, ears too big for his head, legs tucked tightly underneath him. But what hit me hardest was what he was holding in his mouth. A toy, a plush blue elephant missing one ear. He didn't bark, didn't move, just stared at me with wide brown eyes like he was still waiting. Like he hoped someone was coming back. I glanced around. People were walking past, loading groceries, laughing, talking on their phones. No one looked at him. No one slowed down. It was almost like he was invisible. I walked over slowly, my heart already pounding. "Hey, buddy," I whispered. He stiffened, tightened his grip on the toy but didn't flinch. The closer I got, the more I realized he wasn't just lying there. He was guarding that toy, protecting it like it was all he had left. I crouched beside the cart. We just stared at each other for a moment. I didn't reach for him, just sat there letting him see I wasn't a threat. Minutes passed, I lost track of how many. And then I did something I didn't plan. I sat down right there on the warm pavement of the parking lot beside the cart. We waited. The sun was hot against the back of my neck, but I didn't move. He kept his eyes on me, barely blinking, like he was still trying to decide if I was safe. I didn't push him, I just stayed close. Cars came and went. People passed by. No one noticed us. Or maybe they did and just didn't care. At one point, a woman with 2 kids glanced our way. The little girl tugged at her mum's hand and pointed, "Look, Mummy, a puppy!" But the mother barely looked. "Don't touch it," she said, pulling her daughter along. The puppy didn't react. He just curled tighter around the toy. I checked the cart for a note, a collar, something. Nothing. Just the puppy, the toy, and a few old crumbs in the bottom of the metal basket. I reached into my bag and pulled out the half sandwich I hadn't eaten from lunch, turkey and cheese. I tore off a piece and placed it on the pavement near the cart. He didn't move, just sniffed the air and stared. It wasn't until I scooted back a little and looked away that I heard the softest shuffle. When I glanced back, the food was gone. The toy was still in his mouth. Time moved strange after that. I didn't mean to sit there for hours, but I did. I couldn't leave. Not while he was still waiting. I kept hoping someone would show up, that I'd hear footsteps and a voice calling out. But the parking lot got quieter. The shadows grew longer and still no one came. When the streetlights blinked on, I looked at him and whispered, "I don't think they're coming back." His ears twitched. His grip on the toy loosened for just a second, and that was enough. I reached out again, slower this time, and let my fingers brush the edge of the cart. He didn't pull away, didn't growl, just looked at me. And in that look, I swear I saw something that shattered me hope. But not the happy kind. The kind that hurts. The kind you cling to when you already know the truth. I stood up slowly, careful not to startle him, and opened the back door of my car. I grabbed the old fleece blanket I kept there, mostly for rescue runs, sometimes for myself. I brought it over, folded it gently and laid it inside the cart like a bed. Then I stepped back again. He watched me the whole time. I didn't say a word. After a minute, he shifted just slightly. Then again, he set the blue elephant down beside him. His paws touched the blanket. He sniffed it once, then looked back at me. I kept my hands low, palms open, heart pounding so loud I could barely hear anything else. He stepped onto the blanket, not fully, just one paw, then the other, hesitated, then sat right there, on that old fleece, curled next to the elephant, like it was the only thing he'd ever known. I knew that was my chance. I moved slowly, wrapping the blanket around him like a cocoon. He didn't fight me, he didn't whine. He just let me. When I lifted him from the cart, I expected him to squirm or panic, but instead he tucked his head under my chin. His body trembled, not from cold, but from exhaustion. I placed him in the back seat, the toy still clutched in his mouth. I got in the driver's seat and sat for a moment, hands on the wheel, not starting the car, just breathing, just trying to process what had just happened. I looked in the rearview mirror. He was staring back at me. No bark, no cry, just that look. It was like he was asking if this was real, if I was really going to take him home, if this wasn't just another stop in a long road of being left behind. I turned the key. "You're not going back there," I said softly. "Not ever." The drive home was quiet. He didn't make a sound. Didn't move. Just sat curled in the back seat, eyes fixed on the world outside the window. Every red light felt like it lasted forever. I kept glancing back, half expecting him to vanish, like maybe this was all some fragile dream I could wake up from. When we pulled into my driveway, I turned off the engine and sat there for a second. My heart was still racing, but it wasn't fear. It was something heavier, something I hadn't felt in a long time, like maybe I was about to change someone's life, or maybe mine. I opened the back door, crouched down and reached in. He was still curled up, the blue elephant pressed tight against his chest. When I whispered, "Come on, buddy," he blinked slowly. Then, to my surprise, he stood a little shaky, but on his own. I stepped back. He followed. Inside, I laid the blanket on the living room floor and placed a bowl of water beside it. He approached with caution, sniffed, drank slowly, then sat. I moved around the room quietly, giving him space. He didn't bark, didn't whine, just watched me. That night, I didn't sleep much. I laid on the couch, the sound of his breathing just a few feet away. Every so often I'd peek over the edge to check if he was still there. Each time I found him watching me too, like neither of us quite trusted this was real. Around 3 o'clock in the morning, I heard a soft thump. I turned my head and saw him beside the couch toy in his mouth, looking up at me. He set it down gently, then curled up on the floor, his back pressed against the side of the couch, like he needed to be close enough to know I wasn't leaving. I whispered, "I'm right here." He closed his eyes, and for the first time since I found him, he let out a tiny sigh. Morning came slowly. Light crept in through the blinds, soft and gold. I opened my eyes, and the first thing I saw was him still curled against the couch, head resting on his paws, the blue elephant beside him, like a silent promise. He looked peaceful, like sleep had finally caught him after days of waiting. I moved quietly, careful not to wake him, and went to the kitchen, poured a bowl of dry food, and warmed up a little chicken I had left from the night before. When I came back, he was sitting up watching, not scared, not eager, just waiting to see what I'd do next. I placed the bowl near him and stepped back. He sniffed once, twice, then took a bite, cautious, polite, like he wasn't sure he was allowed to eat. My throat tightened. He ate slowly, chewing each bite like it might be his last. After breakfast, I sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, and just talked. Not like he could answer, but like he already understood. I told him about the shelter, about how sometimes people abandon dogs for reasons that don't make sense, about how I never planned on bringing one home, and how somehow he'd changed that in a single moment. He crept closer as I spoke, inch by inch, his paws barely making a sound. When he finally reached me, he didn't jump or lick or wag his tail. He just pressed his head gently against my leg. I froze, then laid my hand on his back. His fur was coarse but warm, solid, real. I whispered, "You're safe now." He stayed there for a long time. No barking, no tail chasing, no wild energy. Just that quiet closeness, as if for the first time in his little life, he felt like he belonged. Over the next few days, we settled into something that felt like a rhythm. He followed me from room to room, never more than a few steps behind. If I stopped, he stopped. If I sat, he laid beside me. He didn't ask for attention. He didn't demand anything. He was just quiet, watching, waiting. The toy never left his side. I started calling him Cart. I know it wasn't clever or cute, but it stuck, and somehow he seemed to know it was his. Every time I said it, his ears perked just a little. I'd say, "Hey, Cart," and he'd lift his head as if to say, "I'm here." At night, he slept by the couch. During the day, he'd curl up by my desk while I worked on the shelter's volunteer files. Sometimes I'd catch him staring at the door, just sitting, eyes fixed, like he still half expected someone to walk in and call his name. I didn't try to change him. I didn't rush him. I let him be exactly who he was. A puppy with a past I couldn't understand, and a heart still learning how to trust.
But then something happened that shifted everything. One afternoon, I had a visit from a friend, a social worker who helped coordinate therapy visits with local shelters. She stopped by to drop off flyers, and when she stepped inside, Card froze. His whole body tensed. I was about to step in when she knelt down slowly, careful not to look him in the eye. "Hi there," she said softly. "You must be the brave one." He didn't move, but then he walked up to her head, low shoulders, tense, and gently pressed his nose into her palm. She didn't say anything for a long moment. Then she looked at me. "He's special," she said. "Really special." I nodded. I already knew. That night I couldn't stop thinking about what she'd said. Special. It echoed in my mind.
Long after she left, I looked over at Cart curled up with his elephant like always, and wondered if maybe he was meant for something more than just surviving. Maybe he was meant to heal. The next morning I called her, asked what it would take to get him evaluated for therapy work. She sent me a list of trainers and programs. I read every word. I didn't know if Cart could do it. He was still so quiet, so unsure of the world. But deep down, I felt it. He had a gift. The way he moved toward pain. The way he stayed near without needing to be the center. Some dogs bark, some jump, some demand. Love. Cart offered peace. We started slow. Basic obedience, walking with a leash, sitting on command. The trainer came by once a week, and Cart took to her instantly. No barking, no fear, just calm presence. She was amazed. "He doesn't act like a rescue." "Rescue," she said. "He acts like he's been waiting for this." Weeks passed. Cart got his certification. I filled out the paperwork to register him with the local outreach program. And just like that, we had our first visit scheduled. Children's grief support group downtown. Kids who had lost parents, siblings' homes. Some barely spoke. I won't lie. I was nervous. I wasn't sure how he'd react, if he'd be overwhelmed. But when we walked into that room, something in him changed. His ears went forward, his head lifted, and without hesitation, he walked straight to the smallest girl in the circle. She was maybe 7, clutching a stuffed fox in one hand, her eyes hidden behind a curtain of hair. Cart sat beside her, didn't move, didn't blink, and slowly, so slowly, she reached out and touched his head. He leaned in just a little. She didn't say a word, but she smiled. After that first visit, everything shifted. Cart wasn't just a puppy I had rescued. He was becoming something more, a quiet force, a steady presence in places that held more pain than most people could carry. We started going every week, hospitals, schools, crisis shelters, and every time it was the same. He'd enter slowly, respectfully, never rushing, never loud. He'd just find the one who needed him most. One boy, maybe 10 years old, hadn't spoken since losing his parents in a car crash. Cart walked up, sat beside him, and placed his toy, his elephant, at the boy's feet. No one had ever seen him cry. But that day he did. Silent tears as he held the toy like it meant everything. And Cart stayed beside him the entire time. Word started to spread. People called us teachers, counselors, parents. They didn't want just a therapy dog, they wanted him. And through it all, Cart never changed. Still slept, curled beside my bed. Still followed me from room to room, still looked at the door sometimes, like part of him never stopped wondering if someone from his past might return. But I knew better now. Some stories don't need closure. Some wounds don't need to be explained to be healed. He had found his purpose, and I had found mine. There was one visit I'll never forget. It was a shelter for teens who had aged out of foster care. Most of them had been through more than I could imagine. Abuse, neglect, abandonment, the kind of pain that hardens you, makes you stop believing in second chances. Cart walked in like he always did, calm, focused. But that day felt different. The room was heavier, eyes full of challenge, like they were daring him to try. One teen, maybe 16, sat in the back with his hood up, arms crossed tight,
I could feel the anger coming off him like heat. He didn't want us there.
Didn't trust it. Didn't care. Cart walked past everyone else, went straight to him. The boy didn't move. Cart sat, waited. Minutes passed. Then Cart did something I'd never seen before. He took his blue elephant, his one toy, the one he guarded since the day I found him, and gently placed it at the boy's feet. The room went still. The boy stared at the toy, then at Cart. His hands dropped into his lap, and for the first time his face softened just a little. "You left this for me?" he said quietly. Cart didn't move, but I saw his tail thump once against the floor. The boy reached down, picked up the toy, and pulled his hood back. There were tears in his eyes. "I had one like this when I was a kid," he whispered. Cart leaned in. The boy didn't pull away. He let him. That night after we got home, Cart was quiet. He always was. But this time it felt heavier. He curled up by the door, not in his usual spot, and stared at the floor like he was remembering something only he could see. The elephant wasn't with him. I found it still tucked under the boy's chair when we left. I thought about grabbing it, returning it, but I didn't. Somehow I knew Cart had meant for him to keep it. It wasn't just a toy anymore. It was a gift, a bridge between two broken pieces of the world. I sat beside him on the floor and ran my hand along his back. "You did good today," I whispered. "You always do." He didn't look at me, but after a moment he leaned his head against my knee and let out that familiar quiet sigh. Cart never needed praise, never asked for anything, but in that moment I felt him letting go of
something. A weight. I hadn't seen, but had always been there. From that day on, he never carried the elephant again. It stayed with the boy, and we moved forward. Visit after visit, place after place. Cart gave pieces of himself to those who needed it most. A silent comfort, a steady presence, a reminder that even when you're abandoned, forgotten, left behind in a shopping cart with nothing but a broken toy, you are not broken. Not really. You are just waiting to be seen. I still think about the day I found him. That cart, that toy, those eyes full of questions and hope and heartbreak. I think about how easy it would have been to walk past, to tell myself someone else would stop, that it wasn't my responsibility. But I didn't walk past. And because of that, I got to witness something rare, not just survival but transformation. Cart wasn't just rescued. He rescued others quietly, gently, without ever asking for anything in return. He reminded me that the smallest acts, sitting beside someone, sharing silence, offering presence, can heal things that words never could. He never knew his name before me. He never knew if someone would come back for him. But he waited anyway. And when no one did, I showed up. That's the thing about these dogs. They don't ask for perfect. They don't hold grudges. They just wait for someone, anyone, to choose them. So if you're hearing this, and your heart is even a little cracked open, go find your Cart. He's out there waiting in a parking lot, or behind a fence, or at a shelter that's too full and too loud. He's holding on to hope with both paws and maybe a toy that's been loved too long. Be the one who stops. Be the one who stays. Because sometimes saving them saves you too.